So today I'm going to talk about something really interesting. It's a topic that many people are fascinated about and they don't really master it. It's a difficult thing to master. How do you create killer content? How do you create content that really stands out? There are dime a dozen people in the market creating content every single day. How do you match? How do you beat your competitors? How do you beat everybody everyone's calling out for your attention? Everyone's calling out for your readers' attention. How do you make sure that you are the one who's always a step ahead? How do you make sure you capture reader loyalty? That's important. So what I'm going to talk about is a process, a framework that you can follow for creating content in a smart and strategic manner. So here we go. Content creation, very broadly, you break it up into a what and a how. Now, let's talk about the what. What kind of content can you create? Now, let's talk about first thing that you have to keep in mind is that every piece of content that you create should offer value. That's a given. I'm not going to restate that, although it needs restating given the amount of content that I see coming out on a daily basis where they don't really offer any value. So you need to offer value, and keep that in mind when I cover especially the first point, because everything that you're offering, you're essentially offering it to a particular buyer, a particular reader. He fits in a particular industry. So you want to keep his interests in mind, his persona in mind. So when you're thinking about what content you should develop, think about what his needs are. What are the questions he asks? What are some problems that he has that you want to solve? Those are all the kind of things that you need to think about. And there are many ways to go about that. Best way, of course, is interacting with your users directly and finding out from them. But if that's not possible, check out what your competitors who are targeting the same persona are doing. It's very important you get that right. Because if you're writing for the wrong audience, you might get the best content, you might get the best amount of traffic, but you might not get the right traffic. You might not get the right audience. So be smart about what you create, and are you creating it for the right buyer, for the right persona. So once you've got that right, then what kind of things should you keep in mind? I mean, what do you write about? You could cover trending topics. You could use tools like BuzzSumo. You could use tools like even Mondover helps to a certain extent, where you can identify what kind of topics are trending in the market. So you like if you had to use BuzzSumo, you would enter the keyword, and then you would see a list of top content that is shared socially with its highest social impact. Similarly, you could even search, do a Twitter search, do a Facebook search, see what kind of content comes up, basically. That might give you ideas. Then there are many times that you want to create content for the purpose of SEO, and it could be blog content, it could be website copy. But what's important is that when you're coming up with content for SEO, there is also, it's usually, if it's for the blog, then you want to make sure that the blog posts offer enough value as well. But if it's for website copy, then don't just keep SEO in mind, because that page is going to be a landing page and a user is going to come to it. So if it's website copy, it has to serve a purpose where it has to market or educate. So keep that in mind. So what content you create, if it is for SEO, don't think just about SEO. Think about when the potential user lands on that page, is he going to see value, basically. Then you could write about news, you could write about educational stuff, and you could scout many forums and communities in your space where you could get many ideas, basically, many ideas. So like for our own industry, I usually refer to Quora. I use forums like Warrior Forum. I go to the Moz community. There are many such communities and forums where you can see what people are asking. You get inspiration for topics that you can write on. So when you're deciding the what, look at the persona, look at trending topics. Yes, when you're writing for SEO, keep the value in mind. If you're covering news events, timely events that have happened in your industry, keep that in mind. Educational content is important because there's only so much value that you can offer through an article. Sometimes guides, resources, useful ebooks, they all come in handy to a user. So you want to diversify your what. Now when it comes to the how do you go about creating your content? You've identified what you want to create. How do you go about it? The first thing you do is that whenever you've identified a kind of topic, you do want to confirm whether there is enough search volume, whether there is enough demand for the keyword. But it does not mean that you stop. If you find that a keyword that you are targeting may not, or the topic that you're targeting may not necessarily have search volume, it does not mean you not write it. Because I'm assuming that whatever you write, you always have a captive audience. You're going to build email lists. You're going to build users around your product, around your brand. So first thing you've got to consider is, will they find it useful? This is useful for, especially when you're writing topics for SEO. Definitely you want keyword research to confirm your keyword bias. Are you targeting the right word? But when you're writing content towards a persona or a trending topic, because a trending topic, the search volume might just be picking up. Even the tools might not necessarily pick up the trend if you're really ahead of the curve. So keyword research is important when you're writing about SEO, educational, or Q&A, because those are the things that you want to keep in mind to confirm that you're on the right track. You want to optimize for a keyword which has enough or substantial volume. Then whatever topic you are, irrespective of the keyword research, I would strongly suggest that you do a top 10 analysis. See what others are ranking for when you search for your target term. So if you're writing content on how do you go about content creation, or how to go about content marketing, what I would do is I would first go to Google, see the top 10 results, see what they're ranking for, what kind of content they've developed to rank for that resource, and make sure that I try to match the quality. I should not only beat the quality, I should essentially try to see what attributes are working for that piece of content. So a top 10 analysis, when I say, it's not only seeing the structure of the content, the tone, the tenor, see who's shared, who are the influencers, who are the authors. You might find patterns, so it's important. Think of your tone. Do you want to keep it conversational? Should it be technical? Should it be formal? Can you add humor? But why I'm saying this is because when I talk about tone, I mean personality as well. Personality should come across your content. It shouldn't be bland. It shouldn't be very dry, if you know what I mean. So this is important. If you're telling a writer to write, tell him to give some personality, to add examples. I prefer conversational content, or content as if you're speaking to the user. You could be a very formal brand, that could be your strategy, but still in every situation, there's always a way to add a bit of jazz to your content. And personally for me, whenever we write content for our site, before actually getting down to writing it, I always prefer thinking about the title, because that usually can change the whole tone of the article. When you think about the title, the catchiness of it, and how specific you can get it down to, that really changes the structure of the article. So if you can, first try to finalize the title and then come up with a broad outline and then get down to writing it. Don't just jump into writing an article if you want to be smart about it. There are many people who just write, but I think that it's always smarter if you have a plan in anything. And this is important. This is very, very important. You do not write for everybody. If you're writing for a very, very specific segment of audience, basically. So like if there's a real estate site and he's writing an article, he wants to write articles on his blog, he would cater to very specific segments. Like he's writing an article about, say, how do you negotiate an agreement with a potential landlord for sub $1,000 properties. So basically, I mean, you're keeping a particular persona in mind. You're trying to narrow down the niche, narrow down the segment, because your content will resonate more with that audience and they will tend to share it more. You do not want to be too broad. You do not want to be too generic. That is good for news. That is good for educational. But if you want content to really resonate with your audience, keep this in mind. Narrow down to a niche if possible. Always a niche, a specific set of audience, segment of audience is much better than generalizing and writing for everybody. Doesn't work all the time. Consider your format options. It's important. You do not need to necessarily write an article all the time. When you're coming up with a title, when you're coming up with an outline, if you really do this, you might really figure out, okay, the best way I could communicate this information could be via an infographic, or maybe a slide show which you could post on SlideShare or even on your blog. That could make a lot more sense. You could even post a video like what I'm doing right now, I thought that the best way to communicate this piece of information was through a whiteboard and what I'm saying. Because as much as I would like to write all this down, I thought the best means of communicating this to you was through a video. You could do an ebook, conduct an interview with a potential influencer or an industry leader in the space that you're talking about, or it could even be a white paper. But consider your format options, because you want to make sure that whatever content you offer, you have diversity. Every reader of yours, some people might prefer videos, some people might prefer ebooks. Of course, the best option to do is convert every piece of content that you have into multiple formats. So like what we're going to do right now for this video, we're going to transcribe it and make it an article as well. And if possible, maybe we could even make a slideshow out of it. I don't know. But it could be done, and it might be done as well. So do check out our post after this video is published. So there you go. Keep value in mind. Do not add to the junk of the internet. The internet has become a junkyard for content. You do not want to create content without a content calendar, without a plan. Make sure you target your personas and make sure you think about how you go about it.